We begin today the Gemara towards the bottom of Lamed Aleph on the Beis, 3 lines up from the bottom of the Yamud. The Gemara brings what it said in the Mishnah, Im yesh sham bezdin masne b'fneim. This is a person that has a job, and then there's an Aveda that he can stop from his job and go and return to someone. So the Gemara says, if the Mishnah that says, if there's a bezdin there, there's three Yidden, he makes a condition with them, I'm only stopping from my job if I get paid for what I'm doing now. If I'm going to get paid for the job, the money that I'm losing. And then the Mishnah said, if there's no bezdin there, then he doesn't have to. What was the lashon of the Mishnah again? Then shaloi kaidim, that is shaloi kaidim. Then his job comes first. So the Gemara brings a story in connection to this halacha. Isser v'Rav Safra, Isser and Rav Safra, Ovid Iske Bahadi Adadi, had a partnership together. They had a business, a partnership together. And Rashi says the partnership was with merchandise, not with money or cash. Now, also Rav Safra went, Polaglei, and he split, and he took his part, B'lei daite de Isser, without the awareness of Isser. Isser was out of town, and he went and just split and took his part, Ba'api Beitrei, and he did it in front of 2 witnesses. Now, Asla Kamei de Rabbi Baravona, he came to ask Rabbi Baravona if this is okay. He's splitting without Isser being there, and he's just doing it in front of witnesses that will testify that he took his fair portion that's his. Amalei, so Rabbi Baravona tells him, no, you can't split this way. Zil, Aisi, Tlose, the Palgas Kamayu. Go and bring 3 as a bezdin that you split in front of them. Inami, or another option is Trei Migoy Tlose. Bring at least 2 edim of those 3 that you split in front of them. Bring 2 that should testify that there were 3 when you split. V'inami, or a third option, Trei Sadi, bring 2 edim, the Palgas Betlasa, that were present and saw that you split and took your portion in front of 3, in front of a bezdin. Okay, so this was the point. Rabbi Ravuna said you need a bezdin to split from your partner. Amalei, so Rav Safra said to him, Minalacha. How do you know this halacha? Where do you see when you split with your partner, it must be done in front of 3, in front of a bezdin? Amalei, so Rabbi Baravuna answered him from our Mishnah. Itnan, the Mishnah says, Im yesham bezdin masne b'fneim. If, when you're in a job, and you want to stop to go and pick up the Aveda, but you want to be paid for the loss of the money of your job, so then you have a bezdin, so you make a condition in front of bezdin that you're going to get paid for this. Ein sham bezdin, if there's no bezdin there, then b'fnei mi yasna, in front of who could he make such a condition? He doesn't make any condition, shaloi kaidim. His work, his earnings comes before going and returning this Aveda. So what do you see in our Mishnah? In order to be able to demand from the Baal Aveda when you return it to him that he should reimburse you for the loss of your job, you have to have a bezdin to make such a condition in front of them. Amalei. So Rabbi Baravuna wanted to compare it. The same thing is here. When a person wants to divide from his partner, that you have to have a bezdin to make this division. So Rav Safra answers and says, Midami, how could you compare the 2 things? Hasam the mapik moina mahai umaisiv lahai. Over there, you're taking out money from this individual, meaning from the Baal Aveda. You want him to pay you, to reimburse you for the loss of your job. And you're giving it here to this person, to the one that found Aveda. So for such a thing, Be'inon bezdin. To demand that money from him, you have to have that condition made explicitly in front of a bezdin. But over here, Didi Shakli, the Bach says, Rav Safra is saying, I'm taking my part. Gilui mil sabalmahu. All what's being done here is, it's just a revelation of a fact which was anyways before, which is that this part is really mine. So if so, betrei sagile. If I do it in front of witnesses, and witnesses are trusted, that they can testify that I took my fair share, that should be enough. And if Safra brought a rayet to his halachet, I'll prove it to you that the Mishnah says, almana. And almana, which the halacha is that she gets fed from the possessions that the Yisayimim have. So now this almana that's supposed to get fed, mecheres shaloi b'fnei bezdin, she can take from the assets of the Yisayimim, and she can sell in order to have the money for her mezainis, even not in front of a bezdin. So we see that as long as 2 people are there that can testify that she sold it honestly and good, you don't have to have a bezdin for it to be able to go and take her part. So what's the reason? The reason is because this is something that's really hers. So you just need Adam to testify that you did it right. And so therefore the same thing should be over here. When you want to take your part, you're splitting from a partner, you shouldn't need a bezdin. Amalei Abaye. So Abaye says to Rav Safra regarding this raya. No, this raya is not a good raya because vilav miyitma Allah. Didn't we learn regarding that Mishnah? Amar Rav Yosef bar Minyaimi, Amar Rav Nachman, Almane ein tzricha bezin shel mumchen. If she wants to take from the properties of the Yisayimim to sell, to have food, she doesn't need a proper bezdin an expert bezdin to do this. Aval tzricha bezdin shel adyatis, but she does need 3 plain people that should be there as a bezdin for her to be allowed to do this. So therefore, from there's no raya. From there you would say that the same thing should be here. If you want to split with your partner, you should have to have a bezdin if you're doing it without his presence. Zog Teilige Mishnah, again another halacha here regarding an Aveda, what is considered to be an Aveda and what not. That's the halacha the Mishnah begins with. Matzah berefes, a person finds a cow that's somewhere in some barn. Ein chayev ba, you're not chayev to return it to its owner. It's not considered to be lost. But if you see this cow somewhere in the Rishus Harabim, then chayev ba, then you're obligated to go and return it to its owner. Okay, the Gemara is going to explain what kind of a barn we're talking about. What's the chiddush here of the Mishnah? Seemingly, if it's in a barn, then it's obvious that it's not lost. Now, if the Aveda is in a Beis HaKvares, lo yitamelo, the Kayin that sees this should not be metame to return the Aveda. Now, if a person's father tells him he's a Kayin, but the father tells him to do the Aveda, to go become Tameh, to return this Aveda in the Beis HaKvares. Or a person's father tells him regarding any Aveda where he's allowed to go and do the mitzvah, and the father tells him, don't do the mitzvah. He shouldn't listen to his father that tells him not to do the mitzvah. The Mishnah that is continues with the halachas that we had before in the Gemara regarding prike uteina, the mitzvah of unloading the load that's on an animal that revitz tachas masai, and also helping a person load the animal with his packages. Now, parak v'to'an, you unload it and you load it, and parak v'to'an, and then again you have to unload and load again. Afila arba v'chamisha pamim, even if there's a need here 4 or 5 times or more. Chayiv, you have to do it again and again. Shenema, as the pasuk says, ozev tazev, you have to do it again and again. We had before in the Gemara, it's not learned from the extra word tazev, but it's learned from the word ozev itself. If the owner that's there goes and just sits down, and he tells this individual that's coming to help him do the mitzvah, since this mitzvah is upon you, if you want to go and unload my donkey, go and do it yourself. I'm not helping you. He sits down and says it's your mitzvah. Potter. And then you potter to help him unload the donkey. Shenema, because the pasuk says, it says then imai, that it's done along with him, with the owner. But if the owner is old or sick and he's not refusing to help, he just can't, chayiv. So then you still will be chayiv to help you, the owner, even though he's not imay, he's not doing it with you. Mitzvah minatayre lifreik. The mitzvah minatayre is to unload the load of the donkey. Avaloi litain, but not to help the person load. The Gemara is going to explain that means that it's according to the Tanakama, it's not a mitzvah to help him for free. You can help, you have to help him, it's a mitzvah, but you can charge him for it. That's what the Tanakama says. Rab Shimon says, af litain. Just like the mitzvah is to unload free of charge, the same thing also to help him load the donkey is also free of charge. Rab Yosef Glili says another halacha regarding this mitzvah, im hoyal of yesel masai. If there's a package, a load on this donkey that's more than what it can handle, you load it up more than it can handle, ein zakakloi. So then you don't have to help the person when it's lying under its load. Shenema, as the pasuk says, tachas masa'oi. Yeah, you have to help it because it's revitz, it's lying under its load. Masa'oi means masa'oi sheyachal lamed by. That's if it's a kind of load that it was loaded with something that it could handle. Not if you loaded it with something that completely more than it could handle, you don't have to help this person. Okay, so the Gemara begins with the first halacha of the Mishnah. Omar Rave, the Mishnah said regarding the cow that's found in a barn. Refes sha'amru, the barn that it says here in the Mishnah where the cow is found and it's not an aveda, eina masa. It's a case where the cow in the barn there is not wandering off. It's in a barn, it's comfortable there, it has some hay there, it can eat there. But also ve'eina mishameres. It's not a barn which is guarded. It's an open door and it's in a barn, not on the owner's property, and it could just wander off. Now, so the Gemara explains, how does Rava know this is the case of the Mishnah? It must be a case where you could see the cow is not just wandering around, because the Mishnah says you don't have an obligation to return it. It's not considered to be an aveda, so it must be a barn where you see that the cow there is eating there and it's fine there. On the other hand, ve'ena mishameres, it also must be a barn which is not guarded. From the fact that the Mishnah has to teach here that this is not considered to be lost and you're not obligated to return it, it must be a barn that the doors are completely open and the animal could easily wander off, and has to tell me that it's still not considered to be an Aveda. Because if you would say that this is a barn which has a door closed, so what's the chiddush here? That you don't have to return it. If you find a cow outside, what do? You return it and bring it inside to a barn, and you close the door that it shouldn't leave. If it's found inside a barn with a closed door and it's protected, so does the Mishnah have to teach me that I'm not obligated to go and return it, that it's not an Aveda? It's clear that our Mishnah is speaking about a barn which is not guarded. That's clear that that's the pshat in the Mishnah.
It should tell you to close the door.
In this case, where it's not Mishameres, but it's... By what?
The yam.
By the yam, you have to protect the lechatchila. But over here, it seems like it's not as extreme by the yam, where you see mamish, there's a flood that it's definitely going to flood this property. Here, the animal seems to be happy there, grazing in the grass, whatever, has hay. Matzah berefes ein chayiv. So the Mishnah said if it's in a barn, you're not chayiv. So here, the next point the Mishnah addresses regarding this is, which barn is this? Where is it located? Rav Yitzchak, so Rav Yitzchak explains, what we're talking about over here is a barn that's somewhere within the city. That's a barn where we say that you find the person's cow there, it's not lost. Now from this we understand the Bereshus Harabim, when the Mishnah went on to say that if you see the animal in a Reshus Harabim, then it is an Aveda, that would mean Afilu b'toichat chum nami chayv. That in the Reshus Harabim, similar to the barn, even if it is a Reshus Harabim within the Tchum of the city, you still chayv to return it. That's one version of what Rabbi Yitzchak said. But others said that Rabbi Yitzchak said like this, a seifa. He spoke and explained the seifa of the Mishnah. When it said in the seifa, that if you see a cow in the Reshus Harabim wandering around, that you chayiv to return it. On this, Rabbi Yitzchak, v'hu sha'imedes chutz l'tchum. This is only if it's in the Reshus Harabim that's outside of the city. Now, Miklal, from this we understand the berefes that when it comes to a barn, afilo eimedes chutz l'tchum nami ein chayiv ba. In a barn similar to the Reshus Harabim, even if it's a barn that's far away out from the city, you still would not be chayiv to return it to the owner. It's not considered to be an aveda. It's in a barn and it's there. It's not considered to be lost. Beveis hakvaris lo yitam lo. Kohen is not allowed to be mitame in the beis hakvaris. And then it said if a father tells a son to go into the beis hakvaris, even if he's a kohen, or to not do the mitzvah of shavas aveda, you don't listen to the father. Says the Gemara, Tana Rabbanon, we learned in the Braise about this. Minayin shemam lo yavev yitame. How do we know if a father tells his son, a kohen, to become tummy? Or the father tells his son, don't do the mitzvah of shavas aveda. Shelo yisham Allah, you shouldn't listen to the father. Shenemar, because the pasuk says, Ish imoy va'aviv tiro, a person should fear his father and mother. And then it says, V'shapseisit ishmeiru, keep Shabbos ani Hashem. Why is it saying these two things together? What it's coming to teach me is, Kolchem chayavim b'chvaydi, that all of you are chayav to honor me, Hashem. So therefore, if your father says something which is the opposite of the honor of Hashem, to not do a mitzvah or to do an aveda, you don't listen to the father. That's the source. So the Gemara asks on this, why do we need a special limud, this hekesher in the pasuk to teach me this concept? Now, time the cost of Rahman only because the Torah writes about keeping Shabbos right near the mitzvah of Meira Aveim, to fear the father and mother. That's how I know that you don't do anything against Hashem when the father says so. But if it would not be this hekesher, Havamina, I would say that you do listen to the father that says to do an aveda. But the question is, why should you listen to the father? The mitzvah to listen to the father is just a mitzvah saseh, as it says here. And over here regarding the aveda, it's lo saseh ve'eseh. If a father says to a son, don't do the mitzvah of shavas aveda, that involves both a mitzvah saseh, which is hashiv teshivim, as we had before in the Gemara, and also a lo saseh, which is lo suchal salam. You're not allowed to ignore an aveda. And the rule always, of course, is ve'ese v'lois ese v'dachi. Sorry, again. V'lo yasi ese, that is, and just the ese of listening to the father is not strong enough. It can't come v'dachi es lois ese v'ese, to push off both the lois ese and the ese that there is in the mitzvah of Shavas Aveda. So it should be obvious that in this case, one doesn't listen to the father. Why is the Brisa say that you need a special pasuk for this? Answers the Gemara, no, I still do need the pasuk. Itzrich, I would think that here, by honoring or being fearful from a father and mother, it's an exception. Here, you would have to listen to the father. Because I would think to say, since we find that for hukash kibud of the mitzvah of honoring the father and mother is compared to honoring the Eibishter himself. Shenemar, as we can see from what the pasuk says, Shenemar kan, it says here, Kabed esavicha v'simecha. The mitzvah of Kibbud Aveim, it uses this term of Kabed. And V'nemar lahalon, and the Torah also says, the pasuk in Mishlei actually, Kabed es Hashem mehoincha. Honor Hashem from your hoin, from your assets, from your money. So Hilkach, I would think, if the Torah compares the Kibbud Av to being V'chabed Eibishter, l'tzayisle. So maybe even if it's a case where you're pushing off both the Esa and a Lois Esa, maybe you still have to listen to the father. Kamash Malon, that's why you do need a special hekesh to teach, the Loi Lishmalei, that when a father says to do an Aveda, or here in this case not to return the Aveda, you don't listen to him. Huh?
To return to Aveda is listening to the Eibush.
Right, so it's equal. If it's equal,
listening
right.
to the Eibush is
Right.
Hokash to the Eibush.
Yeah, so if it's the same, right. Yeah, I think maybe one of the Mefarshim would say that there would be a Havamina that it's even stronger than being Mechabed Eibishter. I don't remember now, but yeah, I hear what you're saying. And this is this Indian of the covet of being Mechabed, the parents is similar to being Mechabed Eibishter. So in the Rishonim it says, and the Rebbe brings us in a Sicha Barichas and Chelik Lamed Vav, Parshas Yisrael, that it's not just compared. When one is Mechabed, the father and mother, he's mamish being Mechabed Eibishter. Because the father and the mother, the whole koyach of giving birth is a koyach of Ein Sof that comes out in the birth. So therefore it's mamish being Mechabed Eibishter himself. Okay, the Gemara goes on now to the next thing that the Mishnah discussed, which was the mitzvah of Prike and Te'ina. Helping one with unloading his animal that's under a heavy load, or helping him load up his animal. So the Mishnah said, mitzvah min ha-Torah lifroik. The Tanakama says the mitzvah min ha-Torah is to unload the donkey, avaloi litain, but not to load it. So what did the Tanakama mean by this? My avaloi litain. What did it mean when the Tanakama said there's no mitzvah to load the donkey? Ilem, if you're going to learn literally avaloi litain klal, that there's no mitzvah to load at all, but how could that be? Ma'ishna prike dechsev aziv taziv mimai. Regarding unloading, the pasuk clearly says aziv taziv mimai, and that refers to unloading. Tinanami, there's another pasuk. It's when it comes to loading, helping a person to load up his donkey. It says hakim takim imai. So of course both are mitzvah, even according to the Tanakama. So Ella, the Gemara answers what the Tanakama means is like this: mitzvah min ha-Torah lifroik bechina. The mitzvah min ha-Torah regarding unloading the donkey, that you have to do free of charge. But v'loi litoin bechinam ella b'schar. When it comes to helping a person load his donkey, that you don't have to do for free. That you could do for pay. And the Mefarshim say this is talking about a case where a person is not like in the middle of a job and he's losing from the time of his job. He's not losing anything. But when it comes to te'ina, that's something that you can charge for. That's a Tanakama. Rav Shimon Oime, but on this Rav Shimon says, Af litoim b'chinam. Helping a person load up his donkey is also something that you have to do free of charge. So the Gemara says, Tanine, lahad Tan Rabbana. This pshat, we said here, this is what it says here in the Mishnah, is like we learned in the Brisa. It spells out clearly that this is the machlokes. Because the Brisa says, Prike b'chinam. And Tina b'schar. Unloading, that you do free of charge, but then helping a person load, that's only for pay. Rav Shimon Oime, and Rav Shimon argues and says, Zu v'zu b'chinam. If in both, it has to be done free of charge. Now, the Gemara explains, Mai tamaya de Rabbanan. What is the reasoning? What's the source for the Rabbanan? So the Gemara brings, this is something we had before already on Daf Lamed Aleph. The Gemara explained this before. If you're going to say like Rab Shimon says that both Prike and the Te'ina is done free of charge, so then why does the Torah have to write the obligation of both of these? Lichtayv Rachmana Te'ina. Let the Torah write just the mitzvah that you have to help a Yid load his donkey. V'leiboy Prike. And it wouldn't be necessary to say that you also have to help him unload. And then, I would say that it's self-understood. If when it comes to helping a person load the packages onto his donkey, so it's not a situation where the animal is suffering, and also in case, and there's also we're assuming now that there's no loss of any money here. It's not like the animal is lying under this package and the animal is getting damaged and it could even die. Chayev, the Torah obligates you to help a person load his packages. Pirike, in a case where you're unloading the donkey, there is tzar balachayim. So there is tzar balachayim involved there. And also the chesar in case, the loss of the person's money is involved there. Like kol shekain, most definitely you should be obligated to do the mitzvah. So why is the Torah writing both? Why is the Torah writing both the Pirike and the Tina? To tell you, Pirike b'chinam, helping him unload because of the reasons we said before that you have to do free of charge. But Te'ina b'schar, when you have to help him load, that's only for pay. So the Torah had to write Pirike separately to say that you do it free of charge.
You're loading
That's a Rabbanan.
You're loading it the first time, you're loading it because it fell down.
It could be, well, the Gemara is soon going to discuss, true. Okay, soon the Gemara is going to discuss that. Could be loading it after the animal fell down, correct? But still, it's a case where the packages are not on top of the animal. So right now the Gemara is saying, look, there's no tzar balachayim definitely in this case, because the packages are not weighing down on the animal. And the Gemara here is also assuming that there's no chesar and kiss either. Okay, the Gemara is going to come back to that point soon. Now, with Rab Shimon, according to Rab Shimon, my time, what's his reasoning? Why does he say that both the Pirike and the Tina has to be done free of charge? As we asked, if so, let the Torah just write Pirike and I would know Tina. And the answer is, Mishum Deloy Mesai Mikroi. The reason is because the Psukim, it's not clear to say that you have a pasuk that's teaching me Tina. If the Torah would only write once, whether it would write Oziv Taziv or it would write Hokim Tokim, I wouldn't know which it is. And I would say it's probably referring only to Pirike because there's more of a reason to obligate you to do Pirike, whether for Tzar Balachayim or Chesar and Kis. So if it would only write once, I wouldn't know Tina. So therefore the Torah had to write both, so I understand that it includes Pirike and Tina. But the Rabbanan answer back to this and say it's not true. Amayla Mesai Mikroi. Why are you saying that the psukim are not clear that one is Pirike and one is Tina, and therefore the Torah could have written just Pirike alone? Here, regarding Pirike, the Torah writes, Roivitz Tachas Masoi, that the animal is lying beneath its load, its packages that are on it. So it's clear that it's talking about unloading the packages from the animal. And then Hasam Siv, in the pasuk where it says Hakim Takim, when it talks about Te'ine, what does the pasuk there say? Noiflim baderech, like you said before. The animal fell down on the way. So, what does that mean? The Ramu Inu, Utu'unayu B'orcha Mashma. The meaning of the pasuk is saying that the animal fell down, and the packages fell off of the animal, and the packages are lying beside the animal, not on top of the animal. You just have to pick up the animal again and put the load back on the animal. So in the language of the pasuk, you do clearly see Pirike and Te'ina. So therefore the Rabbanan says that their reasoning comes back, that it's not necessary for the Torah to write both. And so therefore it must be that Te'ina is only done for pay. But Rab Shimon argues on this. Rab Shimon says, Neiflim baderech. When the pasuk says regarding Te'ina, that the animal fell down on the road, Inu utu'unayu ilavayu mashma. Maybe it means that the animal fell with the load on it, and the load is still on it. So on the lashon of the pasuk, I would never, if we would only write one of these expressions, I would never know it includes Te'ina, that the load fell off and I have to load it back up. Maybe just like Reivitz Tachas Masai means that you have to remove, you have to do the Pirike, so too regarding Te'ina, maybe you have to remove the load from the animal. So therefore he says, you have to tell us to write 2 times. Okay. So now Rov says like this. And now here begins the sugya of Tzar Balachayim. The Gemara is going to discuss whether Tzar Balachayim is Menatayra or it's just Chachamim instituted not to give any Tzar for an animal. So the Gemara, Midivrei Shneim Nilmad. From both of these opinions over here, the Tanakama and Rab Shimon, we could learn out that Tzar Balachayim is Da'iraisa. That Tzar Balachayim is Isser Menatayra. And the Gemara explains, according to the Tanakama, it's clear. The Tanakama says that Pirike and Te'ina, that Pirike has a benefit over Te'ina. That's why the Tanakama said that the Torah could have just written Pirike alone without Te'ina, and that's because of the Tzar Balachayim. So clearly, Tzar Balachayim is a problem in our Torah. Now, even according to Rab Shimon, what did Rab Shimon say here? That the reason why both of them are equal, Pirike and Te'ina, both you have to do free of charge, that's because since it's not clear in the psukim what's what, so when the Torah writes both of them, We come to the conclusion that they're both the same. If the Torah would have written Prika and Te'ina, and it would have been clear which one is Prika and which one is Te'ina, so then Darshina Kal V'chaim. I would say the same Kal V'chaim as the Tanakama said, that it's not necessary, that is, for the Torah to write Prika once it says Te'ina. Once it says you have to load the animal, definitely you have to unload because it's Tzar Balachayim. So you see that Rab Shimon agrees to the idea that there's a problem of Tzar Balachayim by Prika. So now Mishumai, what is the reason why Rab Shimon also agrees to this Kal V'chaimer? So Lav, don't you think it's because of the point that we mentioned before? Mishum Tzar Balachayim. In the case of unloading, there's Tzar Balachayim. And therefore, Darshinon, so therefore we darshan to say that, according to the Tanakama, we darshan to say that by Prike it's done free of charge and by Tina it's done only with charge. And according to Rab Shimon, we say that Loi Misayim Yikroi, but it's all because of this Inyan of Tzar Balachayim. And so that's the advantage and why it's more necessary to do Prike more than Tina, where the animal is not under its load. But now the Gemara says, but we said before 2 points of why Prike is more necessary than Tina. Maybe we could say, maybe that when it comes to Perike, the reason why it's more necessary to unload the animal is not because of the Tzar Balachai. Maybe it's just because of the loss, the money loss that the owner has there, that his animal is under this load and it could get damaged by it. And therefore the Kal V'chaim is as follows. When it comes to loading the animal, and there's no loss of money here for this person where the animal is under this load, Chayev, you're obligated to help him. In the case of unloading the animal, where the person could lose money here by the animal getting crushed under his load, like Kol Shekeh, definitely you have the mitzvah to help him. That's the Kal V'chaim. So maybe it has nothing to do with the Inyan of Tzar Balachayim. But the Gemara argues back to this and says, in a case where you have to help a person load his packages onto his animal, is it so clear to you that that's a case where there's no loss of money? Milo yaskinon, can't the case over here be person is going with his donkey, with his merchandise on the way to the marketplace, then it fell off and he has to load it back up again, and meanwhile he's losing out. He's losing money from being in the marketplace. So there is chisaron kis. Or Yinami, another reason why he could be losing money, also gam vivishakli. When he's stuck on the road and he has his packages beside his donkey, thieves could come and steal from him. They'll steal everything he has with him. So therefore, the Gemara says, we have to go back to the point we said before, that the only reason why it's more necessary to do Prike than Te'ine is because it's Tzar Balachayim. And therefore we see that Tzar Balachayim is Minat Teira, according to both opinions here. The Gemara says, Teida, furthermore, I'll prove to you that Tzar Balachayim Dairaise, that the Tzar Balachayim, the pain, the suffering of the animals is not allowed. You have to remove this from the animal. This is Minat Teira. Diktani, because what does it say in the Mishnah? Seif, in the last point of the Mishnah, it said, Rabbi Yossi Aglili Yomer. The Rabbi Yossi Aglili says, if the animal was loaded up a load more than it could handle, you don't have the mitzvah to go and help with unloading this animal. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, tachas masa'oi, which means masa'oi sheyachal lamed bay. Only a load that it could handle, that's what you have to help with. That's Rabbi Yossi's opinion, what he darshans. Unload. Now, what do you see from this? So, Lav, don't we understand from this, Miklal, that it's understood from the Mishnah, that Tanakama Sova, that the Tanakama's opinion is that Zakakloi, that he doesn't darshan this Masai, and he says, even in such a case where the person loaded the animal more than the loader can handle, still you're obligated to help. My time, what's the reason? Why does he not want to darshan this drasha of Masai? Don't you think, Lav, is the reason is Mishum the Tzar Balachayim Dairaisa? Because the Tanakama holds that the Tzar Balachayim is Isher Minatayra, is Isser Minatayra. So you have to help the person, even when it's a package that he loaded it up more than it can handle, but still the animal is suffering, so you have to help him. So it would basically come out that this question of Tzar Balachayim is a machlekes, the Tanakama and Rabbi Yossi. So according to the Tanakama, we see that it's Isser Minatayra. Or it's something that's Minatayra, that you have to unload the animal. So the Gemara says, no, maybe Dilme betachas masoi pligi. Maybe the basis of their argument is simply regarding the drasha of tachas masoi. Masoi sheyachel. Again, wait 1 second. Rabbi Yosi Sava. Rabbi Yosi's opinion is Darshinon Tachas Masoi, which is Masoi sheyachel lamed. But when the Torah wrote the word Masoi, so it tells you that it's only regarding a package that it could handle, that you're obligated to help. But Rabbanan Sovri, Loi Darshinon Tachas Masoi. Rabbanan say that no, the word Masoi, there's no drash here, we don't darshan, and therefore you have to help. Nothing to do with Tzar Balachayim. The Rabbanan just hold that the word Masoi is not extra for any drasha. And the Gemara says, maybe I'll prove to you the opposite. Teida, I'll prove to you that Tzar Balachayim, Lav Dairaise, that the animal that's suffering, so there's no chiv minat Torah to unload the animal. The Ketani Reisha, what did it say in the beginning of the Mishnah? Halach v'yoshavlai. If the owner of this animal goes and sits on the side, and v'amalai, and he says to the person that's there to come and do the mitzvah and help him unload the animal, hayal v'alecha mitzvah lefraik, you have the mitzvah to unload, praik, you go and unload by yourself. In such a case, pater, you're pater from doing it. Shenema imay, the Torah says, only along together with the owner, then you have to do it. Now, if you're going to say that Tzar Balachayim is minatayra a chiyuv to help and unload for this reason, mali isel amare ba'adei, what difference is it if the owner is helping you, or mali kilesa amare ba'adei, or if the owner is not helping you? Either way, there's Tzar Balachayim over here. So therefore must be, you see from here from the Mishnah, that Tzar Balachayim is not minatayra. So the Gemara says, no, not necessarily. Lo'ilam Tzar Balachayim da'iraisa. Really, Tzar Balachayim is minat Torah. Now, mi savres pater legamri. When the Mishnah says that if the owner sits down on the side and says, you do the job alone, did the Mishnah mean to say that it's completely pater? No, what the Mishnah said is, delma maybe pater bechinam. What it's saying is, in such a case, you have the mitzvah to help him, and it is Tzar Balachayim, but not free of charge. V'chayev b'schar. You chayev to help, but you charge now the owner for the work that you did for him. This is what the Torah is saying. If the owner is there and is helping you, so then you have to do it for him free of charge. And if the owner is not helping you, then and then you do it only if he pays you. But really, Tzar Balachayim is minat Torah, and therefore you have to help him unload the animal.
How do you know that he's going to pay you?
Okay.
He's not there.
No. Okay. Yeah. I hear what you're asking. Taisus over here actually points out another thing, beneged to what the Gemara says over here. The Gemara keeps on discussing, is Tzar Balachayim da'iraisa, is it or is it not? So Taisus asks the obvious question, even if it's not minat Torah, there definitely is an isser of Tzar Balachayim in the Rabbana. So the Gemara keeps on saying, you see over here that the Tanakama held that the Tzar Balachayim, Rabbi Yosi holds that there's no Tzar Balachayim, but in the Rabbanan everybody agrees that there's an issue of Tzar Balachayim. Taisus says, only if there's an isser of Tzar Balachayim da'iraisa do you have a obligation when you see an animal suffering to unload and to alleviate its suffering. If Tzar Balachayim is midrabanan, then Chachamim will misaken that you are not allowed to go and cause directly with your hands a tzar to animals. But to have an obligation to then unload, to take away the suffering that it has, midrabanan, there's no such an obligation. That's the difference. Okay, the Gemara here continues trying to bring different rayas to this question regarding Tzar Balachayim. Simin, behemas, oyev, soine, ravtzan. These are the sources, the cases the Gemara proves it from. Sagt the Gemara shall we say that we have a raya that Tzar Balachayim is minat Torah? Because it says in a brayse, behemas oyev kechavim, metapoba ke behemas Yisrael. A behemoth of a guy that's lying under its load, you have to help and unload this animal, just like with the animal of a yid. So why is this? If you say Tzar Balachayim is minat Torah, that's the reason why you have to unload, just like the behemoth of a yid, even though this is a mitzvah of prik and tina for an animal of a yid, but because the reason is the tzar of the animal, so it applies also to the behemoth of a guy. But if you're going to say that the Tzar Balachayim is not minat Torah, so the mitzvah is only to help this yid. Why do you have to help the guy? The fact that the animal is suffering, you don't have to alleviate its suffering. And says the Gemara, Hasa Mishum Eve. Over there, what the Braisa is teaching is, in order that there shouldn't be any animosity between Yidden and Goyim, that they see that you help another Yid and you don't help another Goy with the animal that's under its load, so Chachamim said that you should help him as well. It's logical to say that that's the pshat on that Braisa, because the Braisa afterwards continues and says, Im Haisa Tu'una Yayin Aser. If this animal is carrying a load of forbidden wine, this is wine that was poured for Avodah Zarah, then Ein zakukla. You don't have to help out. So the Gemara explains, if you're going to say that there's no Isser of Tzar Balachayim in Atayre, so therefore in such a case, it's carrying this wine of Avodah Zareh, which is Isser for Yid, for a guy. You don't help out a guy regarding loading this. But if you're going to say Tzar Balachayim is Min Atayre, Amay in Zakakla, why shouldn't you help out? This is the pain of the animal. The benegayah to the wine itself, which is usr, and therefore you don't want to help the guy with the isser, might have come in it. But benegayah to the pain of the animal, there's still the same suffering. So therefore, this proves that the tzar balachayim is lav deiraisa. The point there is not the suffering of the animal. The point is to help the yid or to help the guy, and it's mishum eva. Okay, so the Gemara says no, but not necessarily. The Gemara says we can say that the pshat in this brayse, when it brings up the wine, which is aser, hachi ka'amar. This is the pshat of the brayse. Ulahatina yayin aser. That to go and to load the animal, the wine. So over here, when it comes to the yayin aser, then ain't zakakla. Then you don't have to help. When you get to unloading, we could still say tzar balachayim is deiraisa, and even if it's yayin aser, because the animal is suffering, you would have to unload this wine for the purpose of to alleviate the suffering of the animal. But in the end of the brayso, when it brought up the yayin aser, what it's saying is don't help a guy load up this yayin aser because it's yayin aser. You don't want to help the guy with an iser. Tashema, the Gemara says, it's another brayso that says behema seivit kechavim. If the behema belongs to a guy, umasa yisrael, and the load, the package belongs to a yid. In such a case, says the Brayse, v'chadalta. There's where the Torah says, v'chadalta ma'azev loy, ozav tazevimai. So the Torah uses the term v'chadalta, that you can withhold. In this case, when the behem is from a guy and the package is from a yid, v'chadalta. You don't have to do the mitzvah, you don't have to help. Now the question is, why not? If the reason is that there's a problem of tzar balachayim, why should you hold back and not help in this case? Is that the behem is suffering under the load. Or if Tazimi Boyle, you should help him out in such a case. So the Gemara answers, no, Lo'ilam, Tzar Balachayim Deiraisa. Really, the Tzar Balachayim is Minat Teira. Hassam Betina. Over there, it's talking about loading the animal. When the animal is from a guy and the load is from a yid, over there, when it benegayah to the Tina, it's saying, the B'chadalta, you don't have to help and load. Correct the Gemara, but if so, what does it say in the next case in the Braisa? Aim is safer. The Braisa then says, the Hemas Yisrael, if it's the opposite, the behavior belongs to a yid. And the load belongs to a guy. So over here, Ozev Tazev. In such a case, you do have to help. But the question is, if it's in order to load up the animal, why do you have to load the animal? Why do you have to load the animal? Right, so the question of the Gemara is, if you're going to say it's talking about loading, so in such a case, when it's only the behemoth from a yid, but the masa belongs to a guy, so why are you helping? Why are you helping a guy load up his package onto this behemoth of a yid? Answers the Gemara, Mishom tzara di Yisrael. The reason why you have to help in such a case is the tzar that the yid has, because it's the yid that's waiting here. He has his behemoth and he's waiting. He has a tzar, he has a job that he has to take the load of this guy, and so therefore the yid is the one that's suffering over here. So the Gemara, if that's the pshat over here, if so in the Reisha as well, where the case is that the animal belongs to the guy, but the load belongs to the yid, so if the load belongs to the yid is also waiting over here with this. And so the yid is also, you're helping the yid by loading up the animal, the yid's load on this animal. So the Gemara answers no. Reisha, bechamor oivik. In the Reisha, where the animal is what belongs to the guy, so over there, the one that's leading the animal is a guy. And Sefer is Bechamar Yisrael. And the Sefer, where the animal belongs to the Yid, it's a Yid that's leading the animal. Says the Gemara, but my Paskis. One second. So the Gemara asks, my Paskis, why are you making this distinction? Why are you saying that in the Reisha, it's a guy that's that's leading the animal, and in the Sefer, the Yid is leading the animal? Says the Gemara, because Tamar de Milse, that's what's usually the way it is. Inish Basa Chamre Ozel. The person is together with his donkey. So if in the Reisha it's speaking about a case where the guy, it's an animal of the guy, we could assume that it's the guy that's with his animal. In the Sefer, where it's speaking about a case where it's the animal of the Yid, we could assume that it's the Yid that's with his animal. So the point of here is, the Gemara now is trying to say that really, it's the Tzar B'Lachaim is Minat Torah. If it would be a case of Prike, then there would be no difference in all these cases. You would have to unload and help the same thing. But over here, though, it's talking about Te'ina, it's talking about loading. And the distinction we're making is, it depends who you're helping. If it's an animal of a guy, you're helping the guy, so there's no mitzvah to help him load the animal. If it's an animal of a yid, we assume that it's the yid that's there with his animal, and so therefore it's the yid that's waiting and suffering, to be loaded. So then you help the yid load his animal.
The kasha is still there.
The what?
Yid is waiting with his loads that he has to get from one place to another place.
But Yid is not present here now. But as long as if the Yid is not present right over here with his animal, he's the
load.
Yeah, he's the Yid load and a chanami. So the Yid is waiting in his house, so he's waiting somewhere else, but he's not here waiting together with his animal. Okay, but the Gemara asks on this pshat of the Braise, v'ho v'chadalta v'ozev tazev, the psukim that this Braise quotes regarding the distinction in the two cases here. It quotes the pasuk of v'chadalta and then the pasuk of ozev tazev bepriko dechsivi. Those psukim are not written regarding loading the animal. Those psukim are written regarding unloading the animal, the prike, which is a case where the animal is suffering. So our question comes back. Here we see we're making a distinction, whether it's a Yid's animal, a guy's animal. If it's Tzar B'Lachaim, what's the reason to make any difference? So from here we can see that Tzar B'Lachaim is not Minat Torah. Amalei, so on this the Gemara answers, Hamani Rabbi Yossi Aglili, that this brayso here follows the opinion of Rabbi Yossi Aglili that we mentioned before in our Mishnah, that the Omar Tzar B'Lachaim lav d'oraisa. Rabbi Yossi Aglili's opinion taki is that Tzar B'Lachaim is not Minat Torah. Dr. Gemara Vaita Toshama, we have a raya here from this brayso. It says, Oyev lifreik v'sayna litan. You have an option either to help a friend of yours to unload his donkey, or you have an enemy where the Torah says that you have the option to help him load his donkey. So which one should you do? Says the Gemara, mitzvah b'sayna. The mitzvah is to help your enemy first. Now the reason is, kedei lochif es yitzray. That's in order to subdue your Yetzer Hara that says, don't help your enemy. The Torah is saying, no, dafka help your enemy. That was the lashon of the pasuk. Kisira chamoy seinacha, even if it's a seinacha. Now the same question though is, if you're going to say that when you're unloading, and the Tzar B'Lachaim, so that's Minat Torah, so ha'adaflei. So helping your friend unload should be much more important than helping your enemy load, even though there's the union of lachaf es yitzray. Answers the Gemara, no, it doesn't work that way. Afila hachi kedei lachaf es yitzray adif. Even if we're going to say that Tzar B'Lachaim is Minat Torah, but the point the Torah says that you're going to subdue your Yetzer Hara is more important, and therefore you have to help your enemy load his animal. One more ayah for today. The Gemara says Tashema. The Braisa says Saynish Amru. When it says that you have to help your enemy with loading his animal, that's Sayni Yisrael. That's an enemy, that's a Yid. But V'loi Sayna Evkechavim. But a guy that is an enemy of yours, him you don't have to do there's no mitzvah, you don't have to help him. And this is even regarding unloading the animal. But the question is, if Tzar B'Lachaim is Minat Torah, Mali Sayna Yisrael, Mali Sayna Evkechavim. What difference does it make if it's a Sayna, a Yid, or a guy? So either way, you should have the obligation to unload the animal. So the Gemara answers, Mi savris asayne de krokoi. Do you think that this brayso is talking about the expression of saynacha that it says in the pasuk? In the pasuk, it writes the expression of saynacha regarding what? Regarding unloading. So over there, Taka, there should be no difference between a Yid and a guy, because it's Tzar B'Lachaim. Asayne de masnisin koi. The expression of sayne is what the Tana in the brayso here is saying, enemy regarding loading. Not regarding unloading. So over there, regarding loading, we're saying that you only have the obligation to help a Yid load and not a guy, because we could say that the Tzar B'Lachaim is d'oraisa. So there's no distinction between a Yid and a guy regarding this.